Hello, and welcome to another wonderful interview. Today I have Matt here, and I found Matt on Instagram with all these beautiful new Instagram creator memes with the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. I really found interest in Matt's memes in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community because they were funny, lighthearted, and I was like, who is this person? I don't know if it was a guy or a girl. And then me and Matt started messaging, and he is a former elder. And I just thought it was so cool that he's now creating these funny memes. And it's so necessary in the ex Jehovah's Witness community because the ex Jehovah's Witness community, in my personal opinion, can be very negative, can be very dark. And I love the fact that Matt is adding some humor and some lightheartedness in this community, which is so well needed. And humor can actually be so healing to us. Why do we need to put such dark heaviness into the healing process? It could be light, joyful, and just childlike if you really think about it like that. And that's what healing is bringing ourselves back to that childlike personality with playfulness. So Matt, I would love to hear your story. I know we talked a little bit earlier, so tell us about what brought you into the Jehovah's Witness community, where you born in, your story, and then how you became this Instagram funny meme content creator. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate this. And this is going to be fun. Like you mentioned, there can be so much darkness in the community. So it's nice to have some fun and smile about things, even though of course there are plenty of terrible situations. Making light of it is kind of a way of healing and a way of dealing with that trauma. So for myself, I wasn't raised a Jehovah's Witness in the traditional manner. My grandmother became a Jehovah's Witness in the 1960s. She got baptized in 1970, actually, at Yankee Stadium in New York. And so she tried to raise her children as witnesses. None of them really stuck to the organization. But since my mother and myself lived with my grandmother, it became easy for me to go to the Kingdom Hall with my grandmother. And over time, a couple of my aunts and their children became witnesses. So I would start to go to the Kingdom Hall with them. And my mother didn't mind sending me to the Kingdom Hall because she didn't see witnesses as bad people. She just didn't want to be part of the religion herself. And so eventually I started going to the Kingdom Hall and taking it seriously, mostly because of my fear of dying. I was worried that, oh, when I die, I didn't know if there was a heaven or a hell type of situation. But then I learned that the Jehovah's Witnesses offer a paradise. So I said, hey, paradise, that sounds cool. I want to live forever. And so I started coming to the Kingdom Hall, and, I took to the people in the congregation. We had a lot of young people in the congregation. So there were a lot of young guys and girls to hang out with. We played a lot of sports. We hung out. So it was very easy for me to get integrated into the congregation and Jehovah's Witness life. And I progressed really quickly as a witness. I got baptized at 14. I started, doing everything that they could give me in the congregation, working behind the literature counter, taking out the group for service because I loved it. It was fun being with that community of people. And I had a very, I guess you could say, liberal congregation. Nobody was really too rough on anyone. So it was very easy to be a Jehovah's Witness for me. That's what it felt like at the time. Even though I had like pressures in school and whatnot, the community I had of witness friends made up for all of the things I couldn't enjoy in school. So like I said, I progressed really quickly. I became a ministerial servant at 18. I started regular pioneering at 19. I got married at 20. I knew my wife from the moment I started going to the Kingdom Hall because she was in the same congregation. And so we regular pioneered together, and, we had a great time doing it. And we were considered very exemplary in the congregation, which led to me getting appointed as an elder very quickly at age 24. And that kind of started my waking up process more than anything. And by that point, my wife had already been awakened to the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses probably didn't have the true religion. but she let me figure that out on my own, which was
So,
also really good. And she didn't push me in that way.
was that before you were appointed an elder, or after an appointed you were appointed an elder? Was your wife kind of waking up, and what was her process? How was she able to wake up?
So that was a little bit before I got appointed as an elder, about a year, I'd say. And most of that was because of internal strife within her family and also within the congregation, seeing the elders mishandle certain situations. She started to question whether, Holy Spirit was really controlling the congregation. And, just growing up, the daughter of an elder, she saw her parents be hypocritical over the years. And she just, got to a point where she wasn't convinced at all that it was the truth. And I kind of saw little bits and pieces of it, but me being the good Christian husband, I was trying my best to, do family study with her and encourage her and let her know, well, let's just wait on Jehovah, using the classic
Of
JW
course.
phrase, wait on Jehovah. And so, I really felt that the religion was, had its issues, but it was still the true religion. So I kept pushing forward. And of course, that led to me serving as an elder. But once I started serving as an elder, that's when, the snowball really started to turn into an avalanche, because I got the secret elders book. I had no idea there was a secret elders book, and I started to learn about how protocol worked. I saw things that happened behind the scenes in my congregation. I saw elders act selfishly and mishandle things. And, you know, it started playing in my mind over and over again. And that, on top of my questions about the doctrine, eventually led to me waking up and admitting to my wife that I don't believe it's the true religion. And of course, she was like, hey, that's great. I was waiting for you.
Wow. Wow. And what was her relationship like with you as you became an elder? She stopped going to the meetings, and was she constantly asking you questions? Was she saying like, "Hey, I found this video"? Like, what was the space between you guys during that time, during that like 1 year when you became the elder?
Well, she never stopped going to meetings. She always,
Oh, she did
continue.
okay.
Yeah, she continued to go to meetings, and she would have her questions that she would say out loud here and there.
Mm,
But she continued to be supportive to me wanting to push to become an elder and try to help in the congregation. And she never made it an argument or an issue. And I think that was really helpful, because sometimes, when we're pushed as people, we tend to, fight back.
mhm.
But because she didn't push me too hard, it led to me thinking with a more open mind as well. And, I have to give her a lot of credit, because even though she wasn't believing at a certain point, she continued to go out in field service and go to the meetings and,
Wow.
do studies with me.
Wow.
And it's just a testament to her patience and how strong our relationship was as friends and as a couple, that
Yeah.
she was willing to go through all of that. And thankfully it paid off, because I woke up a few years later.
Yeah. Knowing very well that your wife was also not believing during that process. So you knew she wasn't believing, but she was still going through the motions. Did you guys ever have like an open dialogue about that? I know you said you tried to study with her and try to kind of encourage her. Would she also say, "Hey, but it's not that"? What was the dialogue with her?
Well, so we never really fully acknowledged that she didn't believe. It was just
Okay,
kind of like,
the white
I
elephant in the room.
knew I knew that she, right. It was the elephant in the room. I knew that she had questions with a lot of things. And, I tried my best to do research and give her, any reasonable, logical answer that I could. And she would accept certain things, but she's like, yeah, but what about this thing?
Mhm.
And, of course, I used another great Jehovah's Witness phrase, let me do some research on it. Um, and, you know, of course, she wasn't playing her full hand. Like, she let me figure out certain things over time. And it's interesting, she never, looked up any like apostate information. She never went on YouTube and watched XJW videos. She was just going based off of her own research and the things that she felt. And it was similar for me. I never, looked up any apostate information or watched any apostate, content. I just came to the conclusion on my own after a while that, hey, this doesn't make sense anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Same. I agree. I think sometimes when you get caught up in the watching videos, watching content, then the new light of the Jehovah's Witnesses coming out, then you're back until it's like, what the fuck? No, people just need to like figure themselves. Like, listen, look within. You have all the answers within. I think people are scared to actually look within because they're maybe their whole life, whereas in the Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't even know how to question things in their head and how am I feeling? How's my body reacting to these kind of situations? It's a whole nother topic. But what a story. What a story. So you woke up and then what happened? You told your wife, this is not Wednesday after during the week when you got home from work, you're like, hey babe, I don't think this is, thinking about it. I'm just, what was the situation?
Honestly, that's pretty much how it happened. She came home from work, on a weekday. And, we had both worked the full day. And I'm just like, listen, I don't believe in this anymore. And, at first, she told me later that she didn't really accept it at first because she's like, maybe he's just going through something. Maybe, because she said she didn't want to get too excited. So she was like, you know what, let's just let me give it a week or so. Let's see if he's still saying this. And most of the reason why she felt that way is because my mother actually had passed away a couple months before that. So I was still very emotional. I was very upset. And so she's like, all right, maybe that's just the grief talking. But then like a week went by, another week went by, another week. And she's like, oh no, he still feels this way. And like, then I started like sending her like videos I saw on YouTube or like the jwfacts.com page. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, wow, he's really done. And she was so excited. It was still nerve-wracking because we kind of had to keep it secret. I mean, we obviously had to keep it secret that we didn't believe anymore because I was still serving as an elder. We're still going to the congregation meetings weekly with our daughter, who was 1 year old at the time. But it was still an exciting time because we were both on the same page fully. Mm-hmm. And, we were working on, all right, how are we going to get out of this organization and not raise our daughter in?
Okay. So you said, let's figure out how we're going to get out of this organization. And it kind of happened and your mom passed away, which I'm so sorry about that. But the fact that you kind of made this major life decision during that time in such a vulnerable time speaks super highly of how passionate you were to just kind of be done with the situation. So ended up.
It was something I felt so strongly about. And, I kind of gave myself time because I'm like, well, listen, maybe I am just talking with grief. But then the more I said, okay, well, let's compare, this watchtower to something else. And the more the time I took to really study and research, I said, you know what, this has nothing to do with my emotion. I'm just going off of logic here. Mm-hmm. And, I did experience things as an elder that absolutely influenced my feeling that it wasn't the truth. But most of the reason why I stopped believing was the doctrine itself. And so the more I tried to make sense of the doctrine, the more research I did from their own website and from their own publications, I just couldn't believe anymore because it was like I was going in so many circles that just didn't make sense.
Mm. And I know we talked about this earlier, but how recent was that you stopped going to the meetings and you stopped being an elder?
So we left almost 3 years ago. Actually May will be 3 years. So it's wow. It's been a relatively short amount of time.
Wow. And what has happened since May? You stopped going to the meetings. And I know we talked about this earlier, but tell us a little bit about your living situation and how you have Jehovah's Witnesses kind of all around you.
Yeah, so when we left, we were living in a two-family home. We had witnesses who are friends who lived right upstairs from us. The landlords of the house were witnesses. We had witnesses living next door to us. So we were like surrounded by witnesses everywhere, but we weren't afraid, we weren't deterred. Hey, we don't agree with this anymore. We were disassociated because, we said we weren't coming back, and we're just going to continue living our lives. We're not going to run away from these people. And eventually we did move. We moved a few months later, we moved to a different place, but I still, see witnesses all the time, sometimes on the job. And, I just haven't been deterred. If you have questions for me, ask me, because I'm not going to be afraid of these people simply because I don't believe the same things that they do anymore.
That's great. And the relationship you have with your grandma and cousins that were witnesses, what's that like? And how about your wife with her parents?
Yeah, so we were both fully shunned by all of our Jehovah's Witness family, almost immediately. And I expected that to happen. I knew, that's part of the doctrine. That's what was going to happen. But what I did, I wrote a letter to my family and I told them, I'm leaving because of these reasons. I can't come back to the Kingdom Hall in good conscience, but I'm not cutting off myself from you. So if you have questions, if want to talk to me, my door is always open. You can always call me. Now, will they? Likely not. But
Right.
regardless, I extended that branch to them. And the same with my wife and her family. She let them know I'm always here. You don't have to stay away from me. If you choose to, that's your choice, but we're always here.
And your daughter, she has grandparents on your mom's side and on her mom's side. So what's the situation like with that? And
yeah, she has no contact with them at all, and it's pretty sad because she has, she doesn't have those cousins and
right.
that family to grow up with. But we've kind of like made substitutions in terms of like the friends we made or the other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses from our area that we grew up with that like kind of became really close friends and almost like family now.
Great. That's fantastic. It's so important to create some kind of community once you leave the organization, and especially for your wife, because I can imagine the kind of pressure she feels to have some kind of community for your daughter growing up, and how important that is for a child to actually feel some kind of grandmother kind of like energy in the midst of everything. And as she gets older, I'm sure you're going to be able to explain the situation, and maybe even in my hope by living my real life, my most authentic life, just like you are, maybe you're going to wake up one of your relatives or whoever. You're not living in shame. You're not living in guilt. You're just living in on a higher energy or a higher frequency, and bringing humor to the organization. Like there's just a way of being that, like I said in the beginning, it's like, why not show the ex-Jehovah's Witness community can actually be positive, happy people instead of, in that, maybe you're too young, but in my time in the 80s and 90s, they showed the worldly people with like heroin needles in their arms, hookers, like
Yeah.
gamblers. Like I don't do any of those things. I'm living a great life, and it looks like, and it seems like you are as well, and your wife as well, and you guys are married and living a great life. You have this beautiful energy together. It's just so wonderful. So then what brings us into you creating this hilarious, and by the way, what is your Instagram handle? Because I'm actually going to put that in my notes. What's your
So my
Instagram
Instagram
handle, and what brought you into that space?
my Instagram handle is at Irregular Pioneer. So I came up with that name because I have a YouTube channel called the Irregular Pioneer channel. And I started making videos, about a month or two after I left the organization, just as like a way to heal, to tell my story, to help others. And one day I just decided to make a meme because, I just had something on my mind. I thought it was funny. And my wife and I, one thing we've always done, like as long as we've known each other, is we've always, made light of serious situations. humor is something we've always relied on, because if we're in an awkward situation or a tense situation, we crack a joke and we're able to deal with it a little bit better. And so I made a meme, and then I said, how about I make a page just for memes? And so I made a couple, and people started following me really fast, and I got a good reaction. So I said, okay, let's make more. And it just kept going and going. And now I'm here 2 years later with almost 2,000 followers on Instagram.
That's so awesome. And I know you said you do get a lot of messages from witnesses, ex-witnesses, people in between. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So I'd say, maybe half, even more of my followers are people who are either active witnesses, or they're physically in, mentally out, or they're inactive by Jehovah's Witness standards. And, sometimes they ask me advice because I used to serve as an elder. Other people are just looking for someone to talk to. Some people just want someone to bounce an idea off of. But it's a really great thing to be available to those people. And I've met so many people. I've even made friends, just because of this meme page. And people, they tell me all the time, like, I love the fact that you're making fun of something that's so serious. And that's, one of the ways we can heal and deal with our trauma.
Yeah, I so love that. I do follow, I think, two other ex-Jehovah's Witness meme pages, and they're very dark. And sometimes I'm just like, why even go there? Like, why? It's just too much sometimes. And again, it's kind of going into that negative narrative. And I'm just like, but can we just stop with it? Like, I don't know how you
Yeah,
feel
I
about that.
mean, the negativity is, part of the story. Unfortunately, we have to talk about some of the negativity, but even in like my darkest memes, there's always a lot of humor there. And I like to use a lot of like, funny viral clips, or like, funny memes that have, been popular. Because even if I'm talking about something serious, like, let's say, the prohibition on taking blood, or, the child abuse issues, I can still find a way to make it tastefully humorous.
I
And
love that.
that's a way to deal with how evil that organization can be. Because of
Mm.
course we could go on and on for hours and days about how terrible they are, and how they affected the course of our life, and the abuse and the damage that we all have from being Jehovah's Witnesses. But we know that that's apparent. Let's take that and turn it into something where we can better ourselves now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And better the whole community as well. And to make it look like we are the bigger people, the ex-Jehovah's or the Jehovah's Witnesses, and their organization is actually really small. We are above them. Whereas if we live in that fear state, we're actually making ourselves very small, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are huge. So this is again a different narrative that we can choose to flip that script and be a little bit of a bigger role in this space. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. I'm actually going to share your channel as well. I didn't even know you had a channel until this interview. And as you see, like, it's super dark where I am right now, but it's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or 2:30. I just don't have the best lighting here in this cabina in Costa Rica. So I do apologize with that, but thank you again for sharing your story. And what does your wife think about you creating this page and having your audience as you do? And has she actually spoken to people too? Because I'm sure, like, her being the wife and then regular pioneer, I'm sure she's gotten some messages. Or is she also, I wanted to ask two questions. So has she helped you along this page? And two, is she, both of you guys active on Facebook? And what is the her response when now she's living in ex-Jehovah's Witness lifestyle, active on social media?
Oh yeah. So I every time I make a new meme, I always send it to her and like get her idea. Like, she's helped
Awesome.
me procure a lot of my memes.
Awesome.
She gives me ideas like, oh, try this or change that. And so she's kind of like a co-content creator with
I
me
love that.
on the page. And she shares a lot of her memes on her personal Instagram page, which she keeps public, because a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that we knew, they come and sneak and look at her
Of
page.
course.
So sometimes she'll share my memes, and like if you share something on your Instagram story, you can see who saw it. And so she'll say like, oh, guess who looked at my page today?
Isn't that
So
awesome?
it's great. And so, we know that people are curious. So let's play on that curiosity and let's give them something to look at.
I'm right there with you. And I love sharing my life because I'm like, again, I love the fact that you can make people curious and see that, again, I'm not a heroin addict and I'm not like I'm not addicted to online gambling, nor am I a porn star. Like, why do we have to even go down that route? We can actually be really great human beings and be productive in society. So I love that your wife does that, which I am definitely going to be following her on Instagram too. So thank you again. This has just been awesome. Would you like to add anything, Matt, to round this out?
I like the theme that we went with here of like searching for positivity and looking for happiness. Like we mentioned before we started the interview, so many people in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, they're damaged, they're hurt, and it's very easy to ruminate on all of the negativity that we experience. So it's nice to have like a happy, upbeat conversation where, sure, we talk about the negativity, but we find ways to discuss how we can make it positive and how we can better our lives as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. There's so much ex-Jehovah's Witness content on, what the organization does bad and how terrible it's been to people. And that content is necessary because people need to know it. That things need to be, put out there in black and white so that even people who have never been Jehovah's Witnesses understand. But once we've done that, now we have to focus on the content of how we make our lives better, how we heal, how we learn to live a full life, no matter what age we left the organization. And it's really nice to have this conversation. I'm so happy that you have this platform where we can discuss positivity and try to make ourselves better as humans.
I love it too. And also, let's be honest, this is not toxic positivity. We're not like positive, 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 rainbows everywhere. It's like we're looking at the serious matter here, but also reflecting, like you said, there's always some kind of lightness that comes to it as well. So if somebody's listening to this who's more of the negative side, they're like, well, what about all the child molesters that are in the organization? That's horrible that you're saying that. How dare you say that? And again, it's like, yeah, there is. I'm so sorry if you were one of the victims. I really do apologize. But there's also more to the story than that. So it's just like, we can go on and on and on about that as well. So I think this is so great to bring this space in, and I love this conversation, and this is the movement that I'm trying to create in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. So thank you for joining my ship of activists with happiness in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. I love it. I love it, Matt. Thank you so much. Your energy is amazing. I cannot wait to connect with you more. So I'm gonna put his Instagram tag and the Instagram and the YouTube can't even speak right now, YouTube channel in the comments so you guys can follow Matt. And I want to say thank you so much for this interview, Matt. I really appreciated it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been great. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.